We're going to do a multi-part tutorial on inventory. The first part, what we're going for is just a simple player, which is a screen block, being able to pick up items and hitting I on the keyboard to see what items we have. So he has one piece of wood right now. When he picks up a second piece of wood, we hit I. There's the first piece, second piece, and when he picks up the maul, hit I, wood, wood, and maul. So we started by creating sprites. I created 4 sprites. The first 3 are what we pick up as a player, and the last one is the player itself. I created 4 objects. Again, 3 of the inventory pieces, 1 for the player. And then obviously we have a room. Alright, we're going to open up the player object, and we're going to go ahead and make a create event. And in this event, we're going to set up some things that will allow him to move around the screen so that we can go pick up our inventory items. So we're going to do our arrow up, down, left, and right. We're also going to set up our key up events so he'll stop moving. And while we're here, we're going to go ahead and set up our I key press. For our key presses, we're simply going to use the H speed and the V speed for now. The left, set up negative speed variable. For the up, we're going to set the V speed variable. And we'll go ahead and open up our room and place our player in there and make sure that we have the movement that we want. Alright, now we can start setting up the inventory system. So we're going to go back to the create event, and we're going to set up an array. And an array, I'll do a whole tutorial on arrays, but the way we set that up is just like a variable, and then you have a bracket to set the position, and then we'll set a value. So what this means is that this is considered a one-dimensional array, which means we have one column of data. We're going to have an inventory, and then each line of that inventory we're going to have a piece of data. So in this case, the first line is none. We can replace that by a piece of wood or an axe. If we pick up the axe first and then we go pick up the piece of wood, then it'll add a line to our array and put in the value for that. So again, this is the name of the array, and then each line of the array will hold a value. We're setting the initial spot, this first spot here, to be none. It starts with 0 and goes from there. 0 is the first line, 1 is the second line. While we're here, we're going to add one more variable, and we're going to call that iCounter. And this I will explain in a little while, but essentially what this is going to do is count which row we're on in our array. So now we need to go add some collisions, and we're going to add a collision for each of our inventory items. And what we want to happen here is when the player collides with the axe, we want to be able to tell where and what to put into the array. So we're going to start with global inventory with the brackets. Now normally you would have a number here, but we're going to put I counter equals axe. Now what this is saying is, in our array, whichever spot that is next, we're going to put axe. Up in the create event, we set our initial value to iCounter to be 0. So if this is the first contact that the player has with an inventory piece, it's going to set the spot 0 to be axe. So we need to have a counter for this, so that once this event occurs, our counter will increase by 1. Now, if we leave it here and our player collides with the axe, he can actually collect multiple axes because the axe is still there. So the last thing that we need to do is destroy the instance. Now at this point we have a working inventory system, kind of. We'll put our axe in our room, and our player will go over to the axe and will collect our axe. So we need to set up a way to see that this is happening. We're going to do that in the iPress event, and we're going to do this with a for loop. Now what this is going to do is it's going to cycle through all of our inventory to tell us what we have. So before we put the for in there, I'm just going to put show message, and in our show message we want the inventory to show up. Alright, we're going to do I equals 0, so we're going to set a value of 0 to a variable I. Our next step is we're going to say while I is less than array length and it's a one-dimensional array. So here we're getting the length of the one-dimensional array, and we have to tell it which array we want to get, which is the global inventory. And then we're going to increase our I by 1. So this is going to set this variable I to 0 initially. And then it's going to keep looping through this while this variable I is less than the length. So if there's only one thing in there, it will only do this one time. If there's 5 things in there, it will do this 5 times because of this counter right here. It increases it each time it does it. So in our show message, we're going to do global.inventory, which is our one-dimensional array. And we're going to use our variable I as the spot. So as this I counts up, it will select that line. So the first time it runs through it, it will select the first line. The second time, it will select the second line. So I'll hit I right now before I collect the axe, and I have nothing in there. Remember from our create event, we set that initial value to none. I collect the axe, I hit I, and now I have the axe. Alright, we're going to go ahead and set up the maul. The maul is actually going to be exactly like this code, so we can actually copy this code and paste it in here and just change a couple of things. First, we want to change this axe to a maul because that's what we have. And then we want to destroy the maul, not the axe. We'll go ahead and put our maul in the room. So we'll go, again, I'll hit I. We have nothing. I'll grab the maul. We have the maul. I'll grab the axe. We first got the maul. Now we have the axe. Now the wood is going to be slightly different. We are going to actually pick up the wood, but in this case we're going to add multiple pieces of wood to our room, so we can actually collect more than one piece of wood. So we're going to start by copying this code again and pasting it onto the wood. Because if we only had one piece of wood, it would work the exact same way. We'll go ahead and put wood on there, and we'll destroy the instance of the wood, and the counter goes up. Now if we play this, and we do exactly what we've been doing, when we get to the wood, all the wood goes away. Now we do pick up a piece of wood, but we only pick up one, and all of them go away. So we're going to make a few changes to this. We're going to create a variable, and I shortened instance to inst, and we're going to set that variable to instance place. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to figure out which instance is actually at the position of the player. So we're going to use x, y, that's the player's x and y, and we're going to say if the object wood. So whichever piece of wood is at the player's position, that's the one we want to destroy. So instead of just destroying object wood, we're going to destroy the instance of that piece of wood. So now we can go pick up things, and when we get down to the wood, only one gets destroyed. We do pick up a piece of wood. I'll pick up the axe in the middle so we can see that it's gathering all of the pieces of inventory. And there's our last piece of wood that we just picked up. Now in the next tutorial, what we're going to do is instead of having all the pieces spread out over the entire list, we're going to add a counter system so that when we pick up multiple pieces of wood, we can actually see how many we have, and we'll also set up a graphical user interface so that we can see that inventory on our screen rather than having to hit I for the inventory.